All right, guys. So Noxy reached out to me and asked me to watch this video after watching me play Guild Wars 2 a little bit. So let me watch her video. Their video? I don't know.
Hey peepos, it's time for a crappy guide that may explain a few things to possibly
Yeah,
newer
frogs.
or
We're
more
frog
casual
boys.
players. This time I would like to vaguely educate people a bit about a very, very unknown thing in this game. Dealing damage.
I don't know if that's unknown. I don't know if you guys see the people rolling around with me. People know how to deal damage in this game. I apparently don't know how to deal damage. I keep getting sniped by everybody around me constantly. So let's see if she can shine some light on this for me.
Thing. It scares me.
Unfortunately, in Guild Wars 2, for whatever reason, dealing damage aka doing DPS is a weird anomaly. And before you go, let me explain a few things. First of all, I'll be rather vague with numbers. This isn't some in-depth
Okay, before we get going on this, I know I've stopped this video twice already. Before we get going on this, I do think that they're onto something here. There is a different sort of combat style going on in Guild Wars 2 that kind of throws me off a little bit. I have this weird tendency to feel like I should always be switching to whatever weapon that I have that has skills off cooldown for me to be able to use quickly, and that's because in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV and every MMO that I've ever played, you always want to be using a skill, and you have the ones that are your bread and butter skills, and you have the ones that are your big cooldown skills, and you're always be casting, always be doing it. But in this game, there's an auto attack that's going on constantly, and that auto attack is a skill, and it does sort of confuse me on the way to get the most DPS out of what I'm doing constantly and consistently. So this should help, hopefully.
guide.
I
This
think that
won't
she
be
knows.
about exact numbers or
This
percentages.
is such a cool skin.
I just want to show some differences. Second, I'm not some uber endgame player either. I'm not a speedrunner. I'm not in the tops, but I have some experience. So don't start bitching in the comments or I'll start rapidly approaching your current location and... So to give you an idea, what I'm trying
Listen,
to
I'm not
explain in this
afraid, dude.
video
Come
is how
over here,
gearing and stats,
little green guy.
boons, traits and builds, consumables, runes and even rotations can affect and improve your overall damage output, and why damage is a total illusion to many new players who
Totally.
simply don't understand any of this.
Yeah.
So first of all, the tale of damage. There are 3 types of damage.
There is a lot less of a straight line in this game from pressing the button to doing the damage. There are a lot of things going on that greatly affect it. In World of Warcraft, I would say that you get probably 75 to 85% of your damage directly from the kit that you have on your character alone, and that if you know and use all of your skills appropriately, you can basically get there no problem whatsoever. In this game, I feel like there are a lot of things going on underneath the surface, and most of the damage, not most, but maybe more like 50% of the damage, 40% of the damage comes from things that are more under the hood in this game.
Damage
Also,
you
what's
can
with
do
this
in this
aspect
game.
ratio?
First, you have strike damage,
You know something
which is
I don't know?
basically direct power damage. You swing your sword and smack the target. That is strike damage. Second, you have condition damage,
Yeah, I know this one.
which is of course when you apply bleeding or
poison,
burning to a
burning,
target
yeah.
and let it tick on them. This is simply damage over time. Third is psychic and emotional damage. This is mostly used in PvP, but I don't play PvP, so I can't talk much about it. Now,
Yeah,
for
the head
simplicity's
games. You play the head
sake,
games
let's
with
stick
people.
with strike damage and with my Reaper for this video. Also to explain some crap easier and faster, totally not because it saves me some editing time and causes me less hassle with the TTS. I shall swap
to my own voice. So first, I will show you what average
He.
DPS you can do without any extra stats
They?
or gear
I
or
don't know.
traits. So basically nothing on you. And as you could expect, I'm basically doing no damage. My DPS is basically
is what mine looks
650
like.
and yeah, that's basically it. Okay, for this next part,
Sometimes
I
I'll
don't
get
have
up
to
in the
mention
3000s
boss
depending on what I'm
leveling and story gear that many new people get stuck in. While this kind of works in many other MMOs like World of Warcraft, you have to remember that those gears are usually streamlined to only your useful stats, so you can't really go wrong with it. It doesn't really work in Guild Wars 2. I think the problem is that the game is essentially trying to throw different stats at you to learn about it, but in the end you just end up having every single stats mixed all together, which technically doesn't help you at all. It actually even just hinders you even further because it essentially just makes you useless, as harsh as it sounds. So for this part, I will add armor pieces with random stats. This basically simulates the post-story, post-leveling gears. And I also don't add any accessories because I will be honest, a lot of new players who finish the story don't exactly
Have
have any accessories
Yeah.
equipped. And even if they have a few equipped, they have very useless stats, unfortunately, on them, so I don't count them in this time. And after whacking the golem for about a minute, you can see that my DPS a little bit improved, but it's still not where it really should be. Honestly, I would say, depending on your profession, your DPS will land somewhere between 700 to 1.2k DPS if you have some lucky power stats.
See, he's not even switching. He's not using any of his skills to try to get better DPS. In a game like WoW, your rotations are the thing that bring your DPS around. Your gear is going to get you to where you're going through one method or another. Sure, I'm sure you guys have all seen the stats list where it's, it'll be crit to mastery to whatever, all the way through down of what priority stat you're looking for the piece of gear that you're using. And as long as you just equip better numbers and you keep that priority in mind, most of the time when you're doing it, you're going to be doing pretty good DPS, and then it's completely up to your skill level of what you're doing and all those things. But in this game, because every single character doesn't just have a straight line of the skills that they're going to be using on their character, and there's some modifiers in your tree that you're going to use for those skills, that everything has a lot more choice going on. I think that's what's happening
there,
to me.
but really that's it. Now let's bump this up. I'm going to change the stats on the armor and the weapon to berserkers, and I still have no accessories, by the way, mind you. But you can see that our damage did indeed improve, reaching almost 1.4k DPS.
This is berserker
time.
gear.
Also, let's spice up our equipment by adding accessories, basically back pieces, rings, amulets, and the other accessories. Of course, sticking with berserker stats still. Since people tend to forget that accessories give you more than half of your overall stats, it will definitely improve your damage. And in our case, it has already bumped up my damage to...
Go buy accessories in auction house. Okay.
2.3k DPS. Following this, I will be adding sigils and runes to our gear. In my case, I will be using Runes of the Scholar and generic power DPS sigils. I know that runes and sigils are usually problematic for new players because the game doesn't really explain how you have to use them.
Yeah.
But in this video, I'm just pretty much showing what difference they can make. While my damage did increase...
Yeah, so these are set bonuses. I picked up on this quite quickly, but the problem is that I don't have a lot of pieces for a set to actually put together yet. This is a thing that I think is going to come into play a lot more when I get a little bit further into the game. When I start to understand when I start to get to a point where I actually have gear sets and I can go looking for gear sets, I think this will come into play a lot. This is the same way on Elder Scrolls Online, where you're sort of trying to get as many gear bonuses and set bonuses that you can that give you what you want. So say you'll have a set like this, and then you'll try to get a set that only has 3 needed pieces, and you'll dual wield 2 weapons and a ring in order to get that set bonus as well. Those kinds of things happen a lot in order to give you a whole bunch of stats. But this is huge fat stats if you have 6 of these.
To 3k DPS. It's mainly because I'm also starting to follow the 50% crit chance, which obviously means that I'm critting more and more. And to top it off, I will be using consumables. I will be using a generic power food and a generic sharpening stone. You have to keep in mind that consumables don't give you a flat DPS increase. They will pretty much scale with your overall DPS. So while you can see about a 300 DPS increase in my case, it will scale with your overall DPS. So if you reach around 30k DPS ranges, it will pretty much increase your DPS by nearly 2k DPS. And we have reached the next point, which is boons and a tiny bit of conditions in form of vulnerability. Now, the reason this part is here is because this is more related to group content rather than solo PvE open world. But people have to understand that boons are extremely important for group content. Hell, it's literally essential for it. Boons are core mechanics of the game that people have.
Yeah, so a big thing that happens here with the boons. So, this game doesn't adhere to the exact mechanism of tank, DPS, and healer. In this game, it's healing boon, DPS boon, and DPS. So you decide what roles that you actually want to bring to the group. Straight DPS is just straight through damage, do all the damage that you can. You don't have a lot of things that boost anybody else or help anybody else. Boon DPS, you do DPS, but you're also focusing on buffing yourself and people around you. And then heal boon is you're really in charge of keeping everyone healthy and giving everyone boons as well. But I mean, it's a huge part of the game. The buffs that come from different kinds of skills in this game are so much greater. I think it's an odd design choice, but it's a cool one, and I haven't seen it in any other game. The importance that comes on the way that the synergies of your class works. And in fact, World of Warcraft is starting to venture into this with their evoker classes, and the support of the evoker being more along the lines of increasing the damage of the people around them, and that's what they're actually doing. And that's a really, really cool thing that I think, again, Guild Wars 2 sort of came up with first. There is so much in this game that every other MMO goes, well, that's a cool idea, and just steals that idea from them, which is totally fine because I like that there's an innovator in the MMO genre. But it is something to note that Griffins came out before Dragonflight. This game had this system for doing this before they started doing evokers, or what you would think of as a bard class in a lot of other games. Very interesting.
Have to use. It's not there because it's only required for group content or endgame content. You might be also asking, where are your traits, where is your build? Well, the simple answer to that is I don't want any traits currently to affect me with any self boons at all, so I'm leaving traits for the very end for now. So first of all, let me mention vulnerability. It stacks up to 25, and every single stack increases strike damage and condition damage by 1%.
Okay.
While you don't have to really think about this
I have a skill that
condition, it's
inflicts
good to know that
vulnerability.
it does drastically increase your and your group's damage. Also, please keep in mind that I'm going to use this on the golem from now on. Now let's move on to boons, and this time I will start simple and just go with 25 stacks of might and fury. Fury will increase your critical.
Where do I get these at? Where did he just get these from?
Simple and just go with 20 now on. Now let's move on to boons, and this time I will start simple and just go with 25 stacks of might and fury. Fury will increase your critical strike chance by 25%, which in my case means that I'm beyond 80% right now on critical strike chance, which obviously means that my critical strikes are way more frequent than before. And 25 stacks of might will increase your power and condition damage by 750, which is quite high considering at level 80 your base power is 1000, so it is 75% of it. And as you can see, our DPS has greatly improved,
That's
almost
insane.
reaching 6800 DPS. And now we have reached the boon that so many people crave for, which is quickness. It doesn't increase your attack speed or your casting
But it makes
speed.
you move
It will
faster.
actually speed up your actions and skills. Think of it like speeding up your animations. And as you can see, it greatly improves your damage, pushing us beyond 9k DPS already. But don't forget that quickness doesn't increase your DPS by a flat amount, it mostly scales with your overall DPS as well. And this is the point where I will finally go into having proper traits for a power build, so let's do that. In most cases, you will see a lot of traits that will improve your damage by adding either a flat extra damage to some or all of your attacks, or simply increases your damage output by a certain percentage. And of course, some of the traits will provide you self boons that pretty much range from regeneration to alacrity and quickness, might and such. And of course, some of them even apply conditions to your target, such as vulnerability, which is why I haven't used it so far in the video. And as you can see, the numbers having traits and proper traits pushed our DPS up quite a lot, reaching 15k DPS. And I have to mention here that by just having proper traits, proper gear, and understanding offensive boons,
you went from 700 or 600 DPS all the way up to 15k DPS. This is the thing. So every MMO has this. This is the thing. A lot of people in this channel, if any of you watch this far, a lot of people in this channel who come here and comment don't understand that this is what I enjoy about video games. There is a system that's going on underneath the surface in every single video game that you play that has a certain amount of difficulty into getting into, because it's different usually from every single game. That's what makes a video game different. The skin over top of it, all of these things, that's all just bread and butter on the top to convey what the difference in the actual game is. The actual game are the systems that are running underneath of it. That is the numbers and the calculations that are going on to show you every single thing that happens when you press a button. So you press a button and there's a bunch of calculations that happen. This person's defense, this person's attack, this person's stats, all of these things calculate in a certain way, and then boom, you see a number pop up over their head, and that decreases from their health bar, and then you repeat the process over and over and over again. Every single game has a different way for calculating the way that you do damage. RuneScape has a different way than World of Warcraft, has a different way than Guild Wars 2, has a different way for MapleStory, and all of those things that you have to learn and put together in your head are how you get good at any video game that you play. Now, Guild Wars 2 has this sort of method of showing you all of these things that is, it doesn't show you all of these things. The game doesn't teach you anything about how the game actually works because it wants to seem like a casual video game that you just play for fun and you run around the open world and you do some quests and all those things. But realistically, if you actually want to hit fat numbers, if you want to get good at the game, if you want to be someone who is you walk in the room, the people all want to talk to you, the women all want to talk to you, you have bigger muscles all of a sudden, your skin glows. If you want all those things in this game, you have to learn all these cryptic systems through a wiki. That's where this game is a lot like RuneScape and a lot less like World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is very, very simple in the fact, like I've said before, that all you have to do is sort of pick out your pieces of gear, follow the build guide on Icy Veins or wherever you want to go, Blizzard, whatever, all the different places. And you don't really have to know anything about the game in order to make things happen. You go, okay, this is the skill order that I want to use. This is which skill it takes precedence over which one, and I just press the buttons in that order and I do the damage. Here, he is literally only auto-attacking, and everything that he did are hidden mechanics inside of the game that the game barely teaches you anything about whatsoever. And now he's doing 15,000 DPS, which is an increase of 20 times roughly from where he came from. Yeah, a little bit over 20 times from where he came from originally. That is a huge, huge increase that you get from systems that the game does not directly tell you about. That's why I say this game is so complicated. That's who killed the person in the lobby. That's where I was done with the candlestick. Damn, I'm good. Okay, sorry.
In general, already made you do 10 times more DPS than what an average casual open world PvE player does.
Totally.
So I hope you can slowly see why there is such a huge gap between very casual people versus people who raid and do factors.
Who understand the game.
So there is one more boon left to talk about, which is alacrity. So alacrity is a little bit of a weird boon because while it helps you as a DPS player as well, its entire effectiveness is basically based on you. I won't exactly show you in this video right now, but I can explain to you why. So alacrity is essential for group content along with quickness, and while I may sound harsh, alacrity doesn't help those who don't know what to do with their skills. Unlike quickness, where you can simply whack the enemy faster, alacrity means that you can use your skills sooner, but if you don't use them, you gain nothing out of it. So the problem with alacrity is that if you don't use your skills, you gain no benefit from it. But if you know what you are doing, you can pretty much expect an average 20% damage increase. Now that we went through all of that and hopefully understand it, let's talk about one last thing: rotations. Now this
But Cole, why don't you just learn stuff whenever you need to learn it? You need to learn this stuff. You can play the entire game and you can never pick up on any of this. You can never do any raids, you can never, but if you want to do those things, you have to learn this stuff. And the sooner that you start learning, the sooner you can start recognizing which items are actually useful to you and which things that you actually need to keep an eye out for, as opposed to just sort of going through the game blind and just being like, well, I've never used this thing before, so I'm going to assume that it doesn't do anything and throw it in the trash. That's not what you want to do in a video game if you want to get to the place that you want to be in that video game, which is being fluent in the video game as quickly as possible.
This could be a video in its own really, but even simple rotations for a build may help you more than just pressing skills randomly without having a clear idea why and what skills you press in an order. So without over explaining this, let me just show you. For this part, I will be playing my Condition Reaper build, which I honestly never got to play before. I only managed to play this twice in Fractals, apart from that, never ever. So on the left side, you will see me play the Condition Reaper by just pressing skills randomly. So pretty much, just like when you don't know what you are doing. And on the right side, you will see me trying to do the rotation as best as I can, and I somewhat remember. But the main point is that on the right side, I understand the concept of the build and what the rotation is supposed to be and how you do or how you try to do the most damage
as soon as possible.
Either way, understanding your build and its inner workings will help you on the long run.
So that was all, and you may ask, what was the point of this video? Well, you may now understand and see why people say there is such a huge gap between people who understand the game and its core versus players who play absolute casually, not caring anything about gearing or builds. I just hope.
And it's totally fine to play a video game casually. It's totally fine to just log in and have a little bit of fun with it and not care about what's going on. It's totally okay. There is nothing wrong with that. But the type of person that I am is the kind of person who wants to know what's happening. I want to be competitive in the video game eventually. I want to be able to play it, all the content that's available to me in it. I want to experience everything that it has, because I don't think that I can actually have a fair assessment of the game inside of my head until I do that. A perfect example of this is MapleStory. That if you just log into MapleStory and the only thing you're using it for is Fashion Builder and to level up characters to level 200, and you're just not really paying much attention, you can play MapleStory and have literally zero idea what's happening in that game. And you might even think that MapleStory is a good game, and you'd be wrong by that. Listen, I love MapleStory. Don't flame me for saying that. But the truth is that, like, MapleStory has so many problems baked into it because of the fact that as you get to higher and higher levels, there are so few people who are actually trying to do the content at those higher levels that they don't even care if it's any good. And in fact, to get to most of that content, you have to spend so much money in the cash shop, unless you're playing on a reboot server or something, to get there and have any capability to do what you need to do. The builds are super they take a lot of time to really figure out, you know? In order to really be competitive in MapleStory, you have to level up tons and tons of characters up to super high levels so that you can then take their skills and link them to all of your other characters and do all these special things. And most people just completely miss that. And it really, I play that game still, and it kind of burns me the way that it's set up, because it doesn't teach you how to play it whatsoever. And I want to learn about this game as I'm going and as I'm doing it, so that I can know what it is that I'm getting myself into, and I can have a valid opinion on this game other than just, oh, it's really pretty and I like to walk around in it. I love Guild Wars 2. I think it's really interesting. I think the systems that they've come up with are different and from all of the other MMOs that I've played, which is amazing, because I've played a lot of MMOs, and you would think that at some point you would run out of the ability to make a new game system, but they definitely haven't, and I love it. I think it's
Hope
good.
you all
Let's finish
can
out this
learn a
video.
bit. Yeah, that it really. But most importantly, if I see you again coming into my strikes group with the high DPS and see you do less DPS than a support healer, does I
Yeah.
swear I'm going to...
Yeah, and it is really frustrating. I think this is the thing too, is that you don't realize how much you're getting carried in a game until you download a damage meter. I used to say in World of Warcraft that there are two phases to World of Warcraft. There's the phase where you have fun, and there's the phase after you get the damage meter, and then you realize that the healer is doing more damage than you, and that everyone dislikes you in your group for sure, because the reason why they wiped is because you didn't help them pass that DPS check. And that's just not a fun place to be in for me personally, and I think that's a lot of the oh man, the trepidation that people have whenever they're about to go into a raid for the first time. There's this anxiety that a lot of players have about doing late game content in any video game, and I think it's silly. You know, you shouldn't be afraid of playing a video game, but there are things that you need to learn. There are processes that you have to go through and things that you have to teach yourself in order to get to the place that you need to be, and slacking off on any of that and then, you know, damaging other people's time in the game is a real thing that you need to think about. And, you know, you just watch a couple guides, and now I'm going to go check out all of these accessories, and I'm going to go figure out where to get these boons and do all this stuff and see if I can make my numbers fat, dude. Okay, that's the video for today, guys. Be safe out there. I'll see you guys on the next one, and bye. Oh wait, like his video and subscribe to his channel too, because Noxie's cool, and he actually reached out to me directly on my channel, and it's really cool. I want to make friends. So talk to you guys later. Bye.